audio because I have a lot of links to share today. So,
well, you have a share screen button right at the bottom. You just share.
I can't.
And then when you share, I add you. You're live.
Can you hear me, everybody? Or is anybody there? I'm trying to find my screen. Hang on, everybody. We're just getting started today. I don't know why when I open StreamYard, I can't find it again.
Can you see your share screen down there? It's called Present now.
I can't even see my... I can't believe the way this works. Hang on. It's going to be really tricky to do this. I can't even see my StreamYard anywhere. So I'm probably going to have to... It just vanished.
Use Alt Tab and see if you can find it.
I don't have Alt on. I'm not on a PC.
Yeah, I'm on a Mac too. On a Mac keyboard, it's either Option or Alt and Tab.
Option and Alt and Tab? No.
Yeah, and you'll tab through them. They'll come up on your screen.
No, it's just that I have so many windows open and I lost it. It's just once you click out of it, you never find it again. So gonna have to just wait a second here until I can find it.
Okay, yeah, you just went find it. There you are.
Yeah, but the problem is I can't find you. I can't see anything.
We can see you.
I know, but I can't see any of my I can't see anything.
Oh no.
See, because we're not where is StreamYard as an app? It's not even here.
It looks like a duck, remember?
It looks like a duck?
It's on your browser. It's on your browser, and it'll be a window in your browser. It'll be a tab in your browser.
Okay, if I go up to my browser.
It looks like a duck. Like a wooden beaked duck. What do you call them?
I don't see that either.
Yeah, you will. Well, what browser are you in?
Chrome.
So on the tabs in Chrome, do you see it?
No. There's no tabs in Chrome. I mean, there's something about these new Macs. They don't let me move around at all. So anyway, I'm probably, you
maybe you're open in Safari and not in Chrome.
No, I'm in Chrome. But if you go to Chrome and I click on Chrome, there's no tabs. There's the tabs at the top.
Yes, there is. At the very top are the tabs of your browser tabs that you have open.
No, not in my Chrome. There's nothing up there but tabs that I organize as organized.
Yes, and one of them would have to be StreamYard because you're in StreamYard right now. One of them would have to be StreamYard, unless if you have StreamYard open in Safari.
No, I'm not. I'm not in Safari. Oh my God!
Well, I've got like StreamYard.
I've got 100 windows open. So it's weird when there's StreamYard. Okay, finally. Okay, so now if I go to share.
It's called Present. It's not called Share.
Oh, it's called Present, share screen. Does it give me a share audio option?
Yeah.
No, there's no share audio option. So
let me know. First.
Okay, so there, can
There you
you
are.
see? Can you see
Now
this
I'll add
screen?
you. There you are.
Can
Yeah,
you
I
see
can see
Mass?
it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to talk today about scalar, and because
Hi,
a lot of
someone.
people,
Who is that?
what's happened over the years is people have gone from I'm going to stop screen share. People have gone from everything from you know um, tachyons, which are theoretical faster than light particle energies, to so many different, like quantum, the word quantum, quantum frequencies. People have gone into so many buzzwords in the world of healing and alternative therapy devices. And now it's scalar. And the term scalar has been around for a while, but in fact, almost all, and you're going to see this because I know how things work. I was appointed director of the Los Angeles Tesla Foundation by an MIT PhD physicist who's a legendary particle physicist, Bogdan Castle-Maglich, who's also from the same country as Tesla, the former Yugoslavia. And Maglich came from Yugoslavia to America and got a PhD at MIT. And I worked for him for over 20 years. He appointed me director of the Tesla Foundation, under which I spoke in the U.S. Congress on nuclear fusion in 1994. And I still have all my letters of appointment. So, I can prove what I'm saying. It's not made up. But again, I gave a presentation here before on the sensation of pulsed electromagnetic field, hence PEMF devices. And the major components are the frequency source, the amplifier, and the emitter. Okay, so you basically have those three components. And a lot of PMF devices are so cheap and so poorly made and have such terrible quality amplifiers that I would never expose my body to any of it. But recently, there are a number of companies, and I don't name companies, you just have to be smart enough to know what I'm talking about. There's companies out there using as the emitter portion, so you have frequency, amplifier, emitter. They're using computer screens, hence TV screens, as an emitter, which is useless, because if you take a tri-field meter, and a tri-field meter, everybody, you just go to trifield.com, you can measure magnetic, sorry, that's RF, right? You can measure
And
magnetic.
RF is radio, right?
Now, magnetic on this meter is low frequencies that go up to 100,000 hertz. And there's always some background. So you can see right now, I have 0.2 extremely low background radiation.
But for those who
Now,
don't know, RF is radio, right?
RF is radio frequencies, and this meter sees up to 6 gigahertz, which is pretty high. So every meter has a frequency range. Now, it's important to understand, as an emitter, a computer screen and a TV screen today, like my Sony TV behind us, you can see I'm watching The Gift on Netflix. You know what I'm watching, which is a Gobekli Tepe, episodic mystery show. And anyway, it doesn't emit. The Sony TV does not emit. But now if I switch to RF, my TV will emit, but it's not the TV screen that's emitting. It's the internet that's running the smart TV that's emitting. But you can see my RF in my house is incredibly low, 0.089 watts per. This is measuring watts per meter squared. So if I'm going to use computer panels that are LCD, LED technology, there's no field there with which to cause healing in the body. And there's certainly no scalar. And because I know Tesla's patents on scalar, and he's really the father of scalar, the way scalar works is you need to have one coil impeding upon a medium that has a frequency. And in the case of Tesla, he used the Earth itself, and he also used well water. He used water sources. So he, and of course, those already have a resonant frequency. And if your frequency that you're impeding upon is not the correct frequency, there won't be any scalar. And the scalar function in Tesla's patent is so super massive. When he did this experiment in Colorado Springs, there was so much power. He describes it in his patent, like tens of thousands of horsepower in the scalar function. He doesn't use the word scalar. He uses the, see, it's, and I'm going to show you a graphic in a minute. And so therefore, if you really understand how scalar works, you're going to see that this device behind me is true scalar, but it's much more safe for the human body, the cube, than Tesla's scalar, because Tesla's scalar would destroy you. He actually destroyed the entire power grid of Colorado, and he was kicked out of the state of Colorado because he blew all their transformers. He's talking about a mad scientist. Tesla was a mad scientist. He was kicked out of the state of Colorado. I mean, I know so much about Tesla, which is why I was appointed director of the Tesla Foundation in Los Angeles and spoke in the U.S. Congress as director of Tesla Foundation in 1994 on nuclear fusion. So when somebody's telling you buzzwords you like tachyon, I know how tachyons are generated. I know the physicist at UC at Berkeley, the Lawrence Berkeley Lab, Raymond Chow, who was one of the first scientists to create real tachyons, not fake ones. And so when you see a term that you like scalar, and you see somebody using computer screens as their emitter, those don't emit. There's no field. They can't emit scalar. And in fact, if you look at Tesla's patent, which is the real name for a scalar wave is a longitudinal wave, which is different than a transverse wave, which is a regular electromagnetic wave. But in Tesla's language, again, he's the father of it. He used the earth medium itself, and he rode the earth medium. It's like a surfer trying to catch a wave, and he catches the earth wave because his coil is much more simple than these double vortex 14-pointed star coils that I invented. His coil is just a round, flat circle coil. So Tesla's coils were cylindrical. They were wound up on tubes, and they were flat squares, and they were flat circles, discs. And so his impeding coil is a flat disc coil, and his power source. So remember, there's a frequency, an amplifier, which is your power source, and an emitter. And that's exactly what Tesla has in his scalar patent. He has his alternating current power source, and he's got ground plates because he's connecting the charge to the earth, because he generates a scalar wave through the earth that travels at nearly 1.618 times the speed of light, which is the golden ratio function. And that's miraculous in itself, that his scalar function, which in those days was called a longitudinal wave, which later became named as a Tesla wave, which later became named as a scalar wave, was so powerful that he blew up the entire state of Colorado, all their transformers, and he had to go back to Long Island, New York. And Tesla did a lot of his experiments at Pikes Peak, in Colorado Springs, on the top of the mountain there. I've been there, and it's those mountains, in a way, when there's a lightning storm in Colorado Springs, anybody who's been there or lives there, it's quite terrifying to think that Tesla was way up on the top doing these incredible experiments. So the reason I teach people how things work, to understand where the scammers are and where the liars are. So you can't just believe everything you read. That's why you have to understand how things work, and why things work, and what really works, and understanding that your nervous system is an electrical system.
So,
and yeah, you have a question?
So there's people out there who claim scalar and they don't have any device, and that they claim scalar and the ability to distance heal you, and they say it's scalar. So that's really not true then.
No. So you can, It's not scalar. No. Tesla's scalar is true scalar. And there's, when you understand how powerful it is, that it travels nearly 1.618 times the speed of light. And the way they measured the speed of light back in Tesla's day is not accurate enough. And the way we measure it today is much more accurate. I believe if you retested his true longitudinal wave, then you would see it's really close to 1 times the golden ratio. And that blows my mind right there. But no, you wouldn't want to do what Tesla did and get in the way of it, because it would blow you to smithereens.
Right.
Tens of thousands of horsepower. So you think of your car, it might have 200 horsepower, 170 horsepower. So let's say, and these are Tesla's words, and he's not a fictionalist. He's a mathematician. And, there's no way in the world that a true scalar function like that would be something that, now you can do a much weaker form of scalar. And let me just go to share screen a minute and just show you something. Settings.
So you're going to click present, David.
Present, share screen, and then share. And you see this article I found they're called non-Hertzian waves or Tesla waves. This is in Mathematics Magazine, right? And actually Tesla has a Canadian patent, 142352, which is the same as the American patent. And he actually refers to several patents here, but let's just go all the way to the bottom. When you see this diagram here, Tesla waves, which are scalar, you'll notice that the blue is clockwise and the red is counterclockwise, right, in the wave function. But a normal wave, the way we look at here, this diagram here is quite small. It's kind of hard to get people to see.
Is there any way you can change the view to 200%?
Well, just look at what's called transverse wave, which is an electromagnetic wave, and it bobs up and down. It's actually, corkscrewing in 3 dimensions, right? And the peaks of the wave are, just imagine a string kind of bobbing up and down in front of you. Or if you look on the oscilloscope, you'll see that this is a transverse wave. Now, a longitudinal wave has wave peaks, but they're compressed inside of the longitudinal wave. So you see the dark blue there? Those are your denser wave peaks, but they're not bobbing up and down. And so imagine the way you generate that is you take your transverse wave and you impede upon it, which means I'm pushing down on the tops and I'm squishing the wave out in its longitudinal function. It's kind of like that, because in Tesla's patent, he takes his coil and connects it to the Earth and impedes upon the Earth frequency at the correct frequency, he says, and I know what that is. And then it forms this longitudinal wave. Now, when Tesla did this, he got in a lot of trouble in the physics community, because Heinrich Hertz, who was the discoverer of the mathematics of the function of electromagnetic transverse waves, didn't want to believe he was wrong, and therefore longitudinal Tesla waves, scalar waves, became something of a debate, because there's different ways to produce them, right? But the way Tesla did it, using the Earth as, and actually it's very complex when you go through the patent. And I've gone through the patent several times, and it's very clear to me that there's several different ways of approaching a longitudinal wave function. But as far as non-locality, so let's get rid of this article, and then I'll go to, I got to stop screen again, and I got to find what I want to show you next. I mean, this is on Tesla Universe here. Okay, so let me go back to my StreamYard because I can find it again. Present, share screen. Okay, so this is his Canadian patent, which has again, he filed for his patents in Canada and the United States. Actually, as director of Tesla Foundation, I wrote Westinghouse Corporation And they wrote me back incredible letters about Tesla that nobody knows to this day. To this day, in those days when I was director, it was in the 90s. So the Westinghouse Corporation was talking to me about Tesla's money and how they took care of him for the rest of his life, because he forgave George Westinghouse $1 million debt, which would have destroyed the company. And actually, Westinghouse would have been bankrupt. So this portion here, other than seeing Tesla Universe written on there, is the schematic for his Tesla wave, therefore scalar. And you can see his flat coil here. And this is his power generator here, right here. Right?
Oh, this is amazing.
This is the actual schematic, but it's connected. He's transmitting it directly into the earth, right? And again, he describes transmitted through portions of the earth by grounding only one of the poles of the source. And this is Tesla's own writing right here. So again, this is the Canadian version of the patent, but the American version is virtually the same. And if I scroll down here through it, I'm not going to read this whole patent to you because it's really going to bore you, but I know it. I know it quite well. But you come to, I want to see where I get to. He's referring to his other patents here. So in this section, he says, what I claim as my invention is the art herein described of transmitting an electrical energy to a distance consisting in establishing stationary electrical waves in the earth by impressing thereon electrical oscillations of definite frequency. And of course, he doesn't tell you what those frequencies are, but I know what they are. And you would have to know that in order for this to work. But once you really understand how this works, the art therein is described for transmitting and utilizing electrical energy consisting in establishing stationary electrical waves in the earth and operating thereby one or more receiving devices remote from the source of energy and properly located within respect to the position of said waves. And then knowing the length of the waves, which is their wavelength. And he goes into, okay, there's a clean view of the schematic, right? It's actually quite simple when you know how to read schematics. This isn't very complicated, but when he did this, it appears that he applied it to his huge, supermassive Wardenclyffe Tower project, which was never finally realized, because Tesla realized that these stationary waves in the earth had so much power that the earth was kind of like a super dynamo, and you could actually, what would appear to be, draw energy out of this super dynamo using these functions, right? So now when you understand, okay, here we go. I can click off this and I want to go to this page here. How the body uses electricity, Graduate Student Association, University of Maryland Graduate School. Now, this is really important because it's the body of a person that is
David,
actually,
David, they're asking you to increase the view to 300% if you can.
Yeah, I'll give you links to those for the people who want to see it. Can you see this, how the body uses electricity?
It's really hard to see. It's so tiny.
I know you. I'm going to read parts of it for you. Don't
worry.
I'm not
You're going to read it. Okay.
You don't need to read this whole thing. I can send people links. Okay, so this is a good description of what I've been saying for years. In fact, I gave a presentation on this subject recently, which is the electrical human and our 6 major electrolytes, which is where we generally get our electrical charge from. So electricity is everywhere, even in the human body. Our cells are specialized to conduct electrical currents. Electricity is required for the nervous system to send signals throughout the body and to the brain, making it possible to move, think, and feel. So how do cells control electrical currents? The elements in our bodies, like sodium, which is an electrolyte, salt, potassium is an electrolyte, calcium is primary electrolyte, magnesium, right? They've left out phosphorus here, but that's okay, and lithium, have a special electrical charge. Almost all the cells use these charged elements called ions to generate electricity. An ion is an atom with a net negative or positive charge on it, whereas most atoms are net zero. Okay, so your nervous system lives on these ions that are generated because we have these electrolytes in our body. So therefore, we're like a battery. Now, notice what it says in the bottom paragraph. Let me just read the rest of this because I think this is quite fascinating. The contents of the cell are protected from the outside environment by a cell membrane. The cell membrane is made up of lipids, which are fats, that create a barrier that only certain substances can cross to reach the cell interior. Not only does the cell membrane function as a barrier to molecules, it also acts as a way for the cell to generate electrical currents. Resting cells are negatively charged on the inside, while the outside environment is more positively charged. This is due to slight imbalance between positive and negative ions inside and outside the cells. So basically, I can take a common voltmeter and you put it in millivolt setting and put the red and the black, the positive and negative, on both of your earlobes, and you'll see that you have voltage. And your voltage is changing constantly. And voltage means difference. And the way to describe difference is you're on a hot day and there's no wind and a cloud comes over and it cools the air mass underneath the cloud. So now you have a temperature differential and now you got wind. You have the flow of current. So it says here the flow of charges across the cell membrane is what generates electrical currents. And currents in the nervous system, cell, and brain are what we're living on. Now, a disruption in electrical currents can lead to illness. That should be primary for everybody to understand. It's right here. So, for example, in order for the heart to pump, cells must generate electrical currents that allow the heart muscle to contract at the right time, which is why, let me just get out of share, why we take magnesium, for example, for the heart, because it's an electrical battery charger that is a particular electrolyte that is very good for circulation and muscle, right? So because you're an electrical system, you can transfer is harmonically pulsed frequencies without wires into your body passively through a pulsed electromagnetic field device. And those pulses will stimulate all your electrolytes and cause them to start emitting energy, and therefore, you just saw it in the University of Maryland Graduate School that if this system isn't working, it can lead to illness. So a lot inversely, you could say if you could get the energy system of the body going, then it should reverse illness. I mean, you could theoretically say that. I can't say that scientifically without getting into a bit of trouble, but when you understand how things work, you understand what works. So if you're exposing yourself to a bunch of TV screens, computer screens as the emitter in a pulsed electromagnetic therapy device, Tesla didn't do that. I just showed you his patent. He used a coil, hence, and a double vortex coil. Counter-rotational is a scalar wave, which is what this is, right? But then your frequencies have to be correct on your left and right channel, right? They have to establish a harmony, and my library of frequencies is utterly massive. I mean, we'd be here all day going through all of them. So when you look at what's trending out there and you see cheap little rings and people are calling them PEMF devices, that's just a little transformer that can't handle any power at all because it doesn't have any resistance, and it'll blow up if you connect it to a good amp, and people are buying them. I can't even believe it. I really feel sorry for the people who are getting into this world of PEMF because one, I can tell you this. Let's go back to Dr. Nikola Tesla, actually, who only had a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering when he came to the United States. He didn't go to any schools here. He's all self-taught. You have to understand, Tesla and Einstein did not have degrees at all. Einstein did not have a PhD. He did not go to school. He was a patent clerk. He's self-taught, just like Tesla. Okay? And you have to understand that Nikola Tesla lived to be 87 years old and was most likely murdered due to the Tesla death ray, which is a whole story in the FBI files on Tesla. And I have those files in my possession. And it's funny, the FBI files on Tesla name my boss, Bogdan Maglich, because he's from the same country as Tesla, and they investigated Maglich as part of the investigation and the follow-up of what happened to all Tesla's secret notes, right? So,
wow.
And I worked for Maglich for over 20 years. You can see his name mentioned in the FBI files. They investigated Maglich's whole family. It's incredible. And here I am, appointed by him as the director of the Tesla Foundation. It's an incredible honor. And I have the piece of paper in my briefcase here somewhere where he appointed me. So you have to understand, again, how things work to know where the scammers are and the cheap quality PEMF devices that are out there that aren't going to do anything, right? They're not going to do anything. So if you take your tri-field and put it in magnetic mode, right? And normal background, this is really low in my house. I live in the middle of nowhere, plus my house is shielded with metal. And if you put it near your computer screen, and in this case, I'm only 0.5 milligauss, and there's 10,000 gauss in a Tesla, in one Tesla. Tesla is a unit of magnetic field that is absolutely enormous. And if I take this up to my Sony over there, it's 0. And actually, I have a document here that tested a wide variety of TVs, because if you go back to the 1970s, 60s, 70s, 80s, when they had cathode ray tube televisions, those emitted radiation. Yes, they did. Right. And then you need a different meter like this one to measure nuclear radiation, which is alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. So you have magnetic field. So, and again, because you're magnetic, and you have a magnetic field, which has been detected using squid magnetometers on the human heart and the human brain, that anything that has electricity in it is going to have a magnetic field, which is like an aura. So when people say that auras are hooey science, that's not true. It's just how sensitive your detector is that can tell you whether there's a field there or not. Now, on most I've tested a lot of the biggest names in mats, where with this meter, the tri-field, where did my tri-field go? Oh, here it is. And in magnetic mode, and on my beds, I can measure the field all the way to the ceiling, which means in all directions, X, Y, and Z, height, width, and breadth, that I've got an effective healing field of at least 12 feet in diameter. But on the big name mats that I've tested, I can't name them here because of slander, I can only see the field no more effective than a foot and a half away from the device, which means it's very, very, very weak. And on the TV set type transmitter devices, I can't see anything actually, which means when you know things, how things work, and you know what works, that
someone's asking about the vortex bed.
Yeah, the vortex bed is what I'm talking about. Yeah, I can see the field effectively over 6 feet away. Now I can use a better meter than the TF2, which is this one, which measures your X, Y, and Z, and this will tell me my watts.
Well, that looks expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive, but I've got a lot of meters because I want to know what's the real deal. I'm not saying I'm the only one that has the real deal. I'm telling you, there are some other ones out there that I really like, right? I mean, I could tell you that I really like what Dan Winter's doing. Absolutely, I do. And I just think that people ought to know what they're getting into when you're spending a lot of money. And I've had my customers go to some of these companies and say, oh, we heard this, this, and this about this, so therefore it must be true. Don't believe anything you read. Don't believe testimonials. Believe your neighbor or your friend or your family member if they tried something. and something actually happened, you can't legally say anything cures cancer. Even if it does, you can't say that. And if somebody's telling you that, I know people. I got in a conversation with a guy. He got his products in Walmart, this guy, and he was hiding in Ecuador because he made all these claims, and the feds came after him and shut him down, and he had to pay him $40 million, which is every penny he ever made. Now, I've never made even $1 million. So, because people are attracted to hooey, they're attracted to, she said that this thing does this, so I'm going to go buy it. Come on, people. Find out how things work. Find out how the nervous systems work. And also, if you have your tri-field and you don't see a pulse in the field, which means there's a pulse, and the pulse gets faster with the higher frequencies. Remember, Tesla's scalar, you saw it in the patent, has a specific frequency. Frequency means there's a pulse. If you don't see a pulse, it's probably just the circuitry behind the TV screen that's giving you a tiny bit of a field that might emit 6 inches away from the TV screen, right? But after 6 inches, I can measure this 35 feet with my meter.
So, David, there's a hypothetical comment here. In theory, I'm guessing that you could put a crystal that you've been carrying on your body, set it on David's cube when you leave the house, and you'll always get the benefits.
No, the technology I use to treat pendants is this would be scalar level 3, would be scalar level 4. And scalar level 4 is not safe for the human body. And Tesla's scalar is not safe for the human body. When he's describing tens of thousands of horsepower, you better get away from 10,000 horses. Because they're going to run you down. And that's how much power he's talking about. So you got to do your scalar in a much weaker, because the body is, remember, if I can measure millivolts, I think yesterday I measured 30 millivolts coming off my earlobes. So a milli means thousands. So that's 30 thousandths of a volt. So that's 30 over 1,000. You know how sensitive that is? So we may be very weak magnetic field beings, but that weakness means it's not a bad thing. It means we're really sensitive, super sensitive. In fact, we're better sensors than these things are by far. This cannot sense what you can sense. It can't. And scientific studies don't impress me that much because they're paid for. And if somebody's paying a scientist to say something because they need work, I'll give you a really funny example. To me, it's hilarious. Okay. So I remember when all the scientists in the world wouldn't talk about UFOs because they said they don't exist. And then as soon as Congress allocates money, now they're getting grant monies to study UFOs at NASA. It was just announced last week. Then all of a sudden, scientists are talking about UFOs because somebody's going to pay for them to talk about UFOs. So your scientist is kind of like your lawyer. If you don't pay them, they don't talk. So that means you can't. So-and-so has all these scientific studies. Hooey. Total hooey. The real study is you. You, like a dog's nose. Like, I mean, when Maglich and I, like, we couldn't get any more funding for nuclear fusion. We went on to landmine and bomb detection. And you know what? We had the most advanced landmine, bomb, and contraband detector in the world. But it was in the test phase, it was better than anything out there except for a dog. Because the dog's nose has hundreds of millions of sensors in it. And dogs did a better job, and they were a lot cheaper than our machines were. So we had a contract with Fort Belvoir in Virginia for our new landmine detectors, but we couldn't beat the dogs. So again, nobody can beat you. See, you're a better sensor than this. You're even better than a squid magnetometer. It'll cost you a few million for the whole apparatus and the whole setup and all the controls to measure the magnetic field coming off a human heart. See, you can feel it. So if you close your eyes and you take your hands and you get close to your heart, you can start to feel where the tingling stops in your hands. And you start to bring your hands in and you can start to feel where the tingling starts in your hands because there's a magnetic field coming off your hands. I mean, your heart, and your hands can feel it. And you can do the same with your head, right? That's why hands-on healers, you know,
and it happens at different vantage points too. Like you'll feel it and then you'll go a little further and you'll feel it again and then you'll feel it again. It's like there's these
and to answer Michelle's question, yes, the crystals, when they're in a pulsed magnetic field like this, the electrons in the crystals will get charged and start jumping shells, and when they jump shells, they emit and absorb energy because they're breathing. In fact, they found this. I saw a whole physics paper on sapphires, and actually the throne of God in Ezekiel is made out of sapphire, which is an aluminum crystal. And they found that sapphires, they breathe energy. They actually breathe energy. They'll gain color in the sun, and if you keep them in the dark, they'll shed their color. And then you put them back in the sunlight, they'll gain their color. And that means there's so much more going on with crystals than you can possibly imagine. And I've studied the functions of crystals and electronics. So yes, my rubies at the top here, my amethyst, pyramids, even my copper here. So my copper in my coil is diamagnetic and my aluminum is paramagnetic. And the way a speaker works that produces sound and a microphone is exactly the same in reverse. So your speaker has a magnet with a copper coil wrapped around it, and it's attached to a paper cone on a rubber ring, and it moves back and forth and it pushes air, and that's how you get your sound. Now, if I remove the magnets, I'm going to show you a video. I hope I can get you to hear the sound in this. Okay, so let me just go here and then go here. Oh, hang on a second. Can you hear that?
No.
Okay, so the only thing I don't know about streamers.
When you share, so you're going to go present again and share.
Yeah.
And then you should be able to share sound too, or share audio, whatever it is.
It says just entire screen. So if I go share and I go to my video of my cube, can you see my cube video? Can you see it? Okay, yeah. So when I press play on this, tell me if you can hear anything.
Very lightly.
Okay, so what's happening here with my cube is because my aluminum is paramagnetic and my copper is diamagnetic, because my magnetic field in my copper being paramagnetic is so powerful. Let me go back here. I'm going to have to send people that link in the...
Hear it.
I'll put it in the chat. No, you have to use headphones. You shouldn't technically, as far as we understand magnetism here.
It, but I'm using the Apple Bluetooth earphones right now.
Okay, I'm not playing it anymore, so I'm going to put the link for people in the chat. So just take a look at that. Now, why you're hearing my resurrection frequencies in the aluminum is not a magnet unless you switch it on. And because my coil is switching the aluminum on, I've turned it into a magnet and it's vibrating. And the speed of sound vibration in aluminum is 11,000 miles an hour. And the speed of sound in air is 768 miles an hour at sea level, which is much slower. So, but then you got a minus 30. So the vibrations in the aluminum, 11,000 miles an hour minus the resistance, means that I've got multiple forms of magnetism in the cube. I've got the magnetic field that is 90 degrees to the wire, and the wire is in a star pattern. So you actually get a tube torus 14 pointed node spinning at 3/4 the speed of light in the copper. And then the copper is paramagnetic, which means it produces a repulsive force field around your house for protection. And the aluminum is paramagnetic, so it's responding the same way a magnet does. So if I hold a magnet, which is called a ferromagnet, next to my coil, I can feel it doing this. It's not on right now. So that also means there's another thing happening. There's another thing happening is all the atoms in the air, because the air is mostly nitrogen, and nitrogen is, let me do another window here and go to my chart and go to magnetic types for nitrogen is diamagnetic. And the oxygen in the air is paramagnetic. So we're like 20% oxygen. Depends on the elevation of where you live. The oxygen goes down the higher you go up. But we're actually living more on nitrogen than oxygen, believe it or not. And those two are diamagnetic and paramagnetic, which means the atoms in the air also...
Hydrogen's there too, right?
Yeah. Well, no, our atmosphere...
Hydrogen's there too, right?
As far as the components of our breathable atmosphere, I don't think there's much hydrogen. We're not talking about water. We're talking about air, right?
Right.
So,
got you.
Okay, so watch this. Watch this. I'm going to show you a video. It's going to blow your freaking mind when you see this video. So I've got to go back to my share screen.
Lund is asking, does your wand have the ability to charge crystal pendants?
Okay. All of my technology has the ability to have an effect on crystals because it will transfer energy to the crystal lattice and the atoms at the bonds of the crystal lattice. And when you charge a crystal, it will hold a vibration with the wand for about an hour. I mean, if you put it on the cube, it'll be much longer, but my scalar 4 technology will hold it indefinitely, which is what's in my pendants, right? I never take my pendant off. This is actually made of Aswan granite, which is the same granite from the same mine of the Great Pyramid of Egypt core masonry. And I have an Alexandrite in there, hence Alexandria, Egypt. So now just focus on what I'm going to show you here. This is going to blow your mind. I'm going to show you a physics experiment. Watch closely because you may not be able to hear this, but you'll be able to see it. And what the scientist does is they take a tub of water, perfectly still, and they put a little foam pad and a tube of water. And because the water is 2 parts hydrogen, and the hydrogen is diamagnetic and 1 part oxygen, he's going to hold a magnet near the water tube on the foam pad, and it's going to go sailing across the pond. So this is really incredible. Watch this. Okay, this is really fun. Share screen. Okay, can you see this experiment where he's got the magnet there, Shiroz?
It's just coming up.
You see that?
Yeah.
Okay, watch.
Good.
Rubber, making it float on a tub of water, and the beaker contains water in it. And somebody's bringing a strong magnet close to it and see what happens. You see that the water ends up repelling by the magnet, repelled by the magnet. You see that? What? Why? Why?
You see that?
Yeah.
Okay, now I want you to think of something. This will take you to another level. What are you made mostly of? Water. So in order to get your blood is mainly water and salt. So let's go to my chart. Let's go to my chart and let's see what salt is. So sodium is, everything's magnetic, everything. It's whether it's paramagnetic, diamagnetic, or ferromagnetic, means a permanent magnet like iron and neodymium and nickel. Any of the rare earths can be made into a permanent magnet. And I should probably go deeper into understand, because you are magnetic, right? And So let me just go. So potassium is paramagnetic, but let's go to sodium. Sodium is paramagnetic. There you go. So sodium in your body is the same as the aluminum plate. So what's it going to do in the presence of a pulse magnetic field? Your sodium in your blood is going to start to vibrate with frequencies and emit, because it's a piezoelectric crystal, meaning the pressure of those pulses causes it to emit energy, which will energize you. Right? So that's why it's important to know how PEMF devices work. So if you're going in to do a healing session, it's really worth spending the money on one of these and put it in magnetic mode and hold it in front of your whatever device they're selling you, and see if it actually has a magnetic field at 6 inches, at 1 foot, 6 feet, and 15 feet. Because I can see this 17 feet on either sides with only 50 watts of power. If I put in 1,000 watts of power, I'm going to see it a long ways away, which means my field in my X, Y, and Z is like a giant bubble. And of course, it goes out at the speed of light, so it'll go all the way to the moon, and it'll go all the way into the cosmos. And so you are effectively affecting your electrical system, because not only do you have sodium and potassium and magnesium and lithium, which is in pistachio nuts and lemons, and phosphorus, which is in the grains, and you can find it in chicken, and that's because chickens eat grains, right? For chickens ate grains, you're going to have phosphorus in the chicken. So you're magnetic. You become more magnetic, and here's the catch. You see, and this is really a big catch, is I know, very soon I'm going to build my 3-story castle, which is 3 cubes. One is 24 inches, and then the 17-inch one is here. And last time, I sold my 14-inch, which was on top of this, and I can transmit it to you through the internet. And because your microphone is a frequency inductor coil, you will get the frequencies through the internet. Because I realize, and the harmonics coming off of all my crystals and all my gems, which is like a very, very expensive machine to build, you will get the benefits of, and I'll be doing sessions once a month. So you can go to my website at davidsereda.co and get in touch with Shiroz and sign up for those. There's going to be 2 levels of those. There'll be a live and a replay. And the replay is still quite effective, because remember, a speaker and a microphone actually work the same way. So therefore, and I know this because I had clients in the early days. I had this chiropractor, and he said, "I don't know what it is, David, but whenever I watch the video of you when you're transmitting frequencies through your wand, I felt like I was being healed, and I don't know if I ever need to buy one of your wands, because I just got to keep replaying the video." And he said, "My nervous system responds every time." And he would call me up, and I'm shopping with my kids, and I'm like, "How is this happening?" It took me years to figure out that what he was saying was not his imagination. Yeah. Phosphorus in the blood, Dan Winter. Phosphorus, you can't live without phosphorus. It's in the grains. Now, if you go on a no-carb diet, you're not getting much phosphorus at all, unless you eat chicken. Because if you eat chicken and the chicken eats the grains, you're going to get some phosphorus. But even a serving of chicken is going to give you only about 30% of what you need in a single day. So you got to eat from all your food groups to get all your electrolytes. You got to eat some pistachios, have some lemon to get your lithium. Then you got to eat your fruit is all your potassium, and potatoes and fruit. You're going to get all your potassium. And then, so people that are only eating from a few food groups, your magnetic field is going to get very weak. Now, your iron in your blood is a ferromagnet, which means it can be permanently magnetized, which it is on a very, very weak scale. See, scientists, I just read this, scientists found that the human brain is actually magnetic because of the presence of iron in the human blood. And we didn't know this before, because as sensors get better, to more low levels of sensitivity, we can suddenly see fields that we couldn't see before. So in the early days, doctors would say, oh, we can't see any evidence of electricity going through the human nervous system. Meanwhile, if you electrocute a person, what happens? They electrify and their organs heat up and explode and they die. So that means we can receive electricity. I thought that was hilarious when doctors try to tell you there's no electricity in the human nervous system. And meanwhile, they know this absolutely now, that there's electricity in the human nervous system. But it's more on an ionic charge level than the way we run electricity through these wires. But I can touch my coil. I won't get electrocuted. And my field, which I can measure 30 feet across, 35 feet across on my cubes, is so gentle, I'm nowhere near 1 Tesla, okay? So when you go in an MRI machine or a CAT scan, some of them, they range between 2 and 6 Tesla nowadays. It doesn't kill you, does it? 6 Tesla is utterly, astoundingly massive for a magnetic field. And the fact that it doesn't hurt you is even more mind-blowing, to show how safe magnetic fields can be on living systems. Now, I wouldn't spend a lot of time in even 1 Tesla. And this is nowhere near 1 Tesla. No, we're not even anywhere near there, because the nervous system responds very nicely with a very reasonable pulsed harmony in magnetic fields. So again, because I'm going to say this in the closing, because we're coming to the closing, when you're looking at PEMF devices, in my opinion, I like my devices and Dan Winter's the best of anything out there. Now, that doesn't mean I get them thrown at me all the time. Somebody's got a little ring-shaped one. Yeah, they're just buying a transformer ferrite coil, and if you know how electricity works, I mean, you can't put any power in that without heating up the amp and blowing it up. And then you look at these really tiny little donut things that are rodent-type coils. There's no resistance there either. The field is very tiny. Doesn't interest me. A really big rodent coil with a lot of resistance, which I've only seen a very few of these made. I know who makes a really good one, but he doesn't make them for the purpose of therapy, are very good coils. But they need to be coupled with very well-designed frequency ratios and patterns, like I have in my frequency library. See, we're way past Rife. Like, yes, you can run any Rife frequencies through my devices, but we're way past that now. See, Rife found frequencies that disrupt certain pathogens, but he didn't find what frequencies harmonize the physiology and the nervous system of the human being that brings us back to a holistic harmonic nervous system, right? He didn't do that. He looked for destructive frequencies that were destructive. So you can't end, if you use a right frequency, you should always end your session with a harmony. Always end your session with a harmony. A harmony requires 2 or more frequencies. Yeah, let me send people this graduate study on the electricity of the human body from the University of Maryland. I want to put this in the chat, right? So again, know what you're getting into. Certain scalar levels would be actually harmful to the human body. Scalar is very powerful stuff if you read Tesla's patents on it. I don't believe most of the people who describe their device as scalar, they're not scalar. They're just using a word that you like. And they'll have some scientists tell you, because they're paying them. That's why it doesn't impress me. I worked in the field of professional science and physics for over 20 years. And what I saw is like kids throwing tantrums, screaming and yelling at each other. You wouldn't believe what it's like. It's abusive. to come to a consensus and an agreement in the scientific community is like getting kids to all get along and live in perfect harmony every single day. Now, my daughter back here is having an incredible experience with these frequencies. She's grown up around them. So with that, I mean, you go to the website. If you have any questions, just email the website. Please protect yourself, what you're buying. I'm not saying mine are the only systems out there that work. Just get yourself a meter. Make sure the field is pulsed. Know what it's pulsing. Know what you're getting into, because there's so much fake stuff out there. It's mind-blowing how much fake stuff there is out there. It's utterly mind-blowing. And I'll post this letter where I was appointed to the Tesla Foundation by Maglich so many years ago. It was in the 90s. Once I actually did this before a long time ago. I posted it. Actually, here's a picture that Maglich gave me of Tesla at Niagara Falls. In fact, Maglich
Cool.
brought this bronze statue of Tesla to Niagara Falls for the anniversary at Westinghouse.
He must have been really old in that picture, eh?
Well, Tesla lived to be 87, and he was around these massive, but he was murdered. He would have lived longer. And Maglich, actually, interestingly, Maglich lived to be 87. I'm just trying to see if I can find it really quickly here. My letter of appointment to Tesla. I have it scanned. It's a very detailed letter that Maglich. And if you don't know who Bogdan Maglich is, he's a legendary particle physicist. Maglich is Maglich. And I was a consultant and associate of his for years and years and years and years. And anyway, I'll find it, scan it again, and send it to you. Like, here's a letter. No, I've got so many documents in here, and they're so old because I did this work so many years ago.
It says here, David, your name should be on the list of top philosophers in science on Wiki.
Director of Defense Research and Engineering to me. David B. Sereda, President of High Energy Micro Devices, Irvine, California. November 21st, 1997.
If you take a picture of those, David, I'll put them on the website for you.
Yeah, here's one from Westinghouse. Let me see this one. Westinghouse Corporation. This is when I was working for. Where is the one where he? Here's my letter of appointment. Here it is. Oh no, here it is. Okay. United States Congress to David Sereda, the Tesla Foundation, Northwest Passage, February 19th, 19. This is my letter of appointment signed by the committee chairman, Tom Bevel, for me speaking in Congress on Department of the Treasury, David Sereda. And here
what
is
year was that, David?
Tesla Foundation. This is
what?
The Tesla Foundation was created by Maglich, Bogdan Maglich, David B. Sereda. Dear Mr. Sereda, I'm happy to offer you the position of Director of Tesla Foundation. See, this is it. My first job was raising funds with NASA for the nuclear fusion, and then speaking in Congress in nuclear fusion. And of course, I was already so well versed in Tesla, having studied his patents for over a decade at that point. And
Somebody's asking, do you have anything or working on anything to help humanity with developing metaphysical powers? I believe all of David's devices will categorically and definitely do that.
If you increase your
work with them.
Yeah, if you increase your magnetic field, you're increasing your powers, because magnetic fields control everything. Everything is being controlled by, and my new theory on the UFOs is they are what's called a diamagnetic and paramagnetic lens. Notice they're in the shape of a lens. And even a metal lens, just in the same way you can focus sunlight with a glass lens, and sunlight is electromagnetic energy, you can use metal lenses to focus different types of magnetism. At that focal point, you have immense power. And I've actually made a whole presentation on this that you can watch. For people who are interested, I can send you the copy of my presentation on magnetic lensing and UFOs, because all the movements of the military footage of the UFOs, when I go frame by frame, that's not anti-gravity. It's this. Okay, so watch this. So here's a big magnet in my hand, and here's a tiny little magnet. And if I hold this above here, no, this is steel. This isn't a magnet. Here's my magnet right here. Sometimes I can't tell which one is a magnet I have. Okay, so let's take this huge magnet. Now it's better to do this on a.
You raise your hand a little higher.
So there you go, and I got my little magnet up here. Now imagine, believe it or not, a sphere is like a lens, and the big magnet will jump up and meet the small magnet, and inversely, the small magnet will jump up and to meet that one. So imagine that if I have a magnetic lens and it's my spaceship, and at the focal point in front of the aircraft, what am I going through? What am I traveling through? What is oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere? Paramagnetic and diamagnetic. And the nitrogen, which is most of it, is diamagnetic. So if I apply a diamagnetic lens to it, it'll push it out of the way for me, and I'll go right through it. So what impedes on an aircraft when it's trying to go hypervelocity is all these. The normal state of magnetism is the background of water. If you're moving through water, transmedium UFOs going through the water can easily be explained by this. Going through the air at hypervelocities is what's in the air are these magnetic poles they're scattered all over the place. They're completely chaotic. So when you push against them, it's kind of like pushing against spaghetti that's in all these different directions. So imagine your spaghetti is North Pole, South Pole, right? But the spaghetti's like this. It's all over the place. But if my magnet causes them to align north-south, boom, I just go flying right through it, right? Because it causes an attraction. Now, if you watch the gimbal UFO on the Atlantic, it turns, and then it goes, it just takes off. And it behaves exactly like this. It's the same. So here's my magnet down below. And these UFOs would only have to switch on that magnetic ability for a tiny fraction of a second. They're going so fast, they switch it off and they're still moving at incredible speed.
Is that how Beam Me Up Scotty works in Star Trek?
Well, see, levitating, there's a video online of a levitating frog, right? And I figured it out. So what are your bones made out of? Calcium. So calcium is a metal, right? Calcium is a metal, believe it or not. So then you go to your chart. What is calcium? Okay, let me go to my calcium in my chart.
Paramagnetic? Diamagnetic?
It's probably paramagnetic. Let's go to calcium. Let's see. Zinc is diamagnetic. I wish they would put this in alphabetical order, but they don't. Oxygen is paramagnetic. Sodium. Come on. Calcium is paramagnetic. So that means it's just like my aluminum back here, right? So if I take a copper cube here, right, and I take a good neodymium magnet, which I have in here. My magnet's driving me crazy. Okay, so, and I push up and down on this, you'll feel a pull. And that's because the copper is diamagnetic. You can do the same thing with aluminum. Move a magnet really fast
so if
over.
we're paramagnetic and there's a big enough diamagnetic thing up there, it could pull us up?
If it's a lens, because it needs to be a lens so that the magnetism is really concentrated. So then you can put some, you can abduct somebody like a cow, and we know about the cows levitating up, and they got these massive bones, and you can actually levitate anything because everything is actually magnetic. So if you Google levitating frog, you'll see, I forget how many Tesla their magnet was, but they didn't use a magnetic lens, which is my discovery why the UFOs are shaped like that. I should give a whole talk on this. So therefore, because you're magnetic, your bones are magnetic, we can levitate you in a focused magnetic lens, right? So in the same way you think of, if I can set paper on fire with sunlight, but sunlight doesn't set paper on fire, how much more concentrated is sunlight in a lens versus ordinary sunlight? So I can do the same thing.
Oh my God.
Sunlight is electromagnetic energy at a very tiny wavelength, a wavelength so small you can't see it, a terahertz wave, because all the colors coming off the sun are in the 500 and something terahertz cycles. That goes higher than that. You got to go through each color. I have a whole chart on this. So you think of how small those wavelengths are. So you would only need a lens.
So the shape of the lens basically concentrates it?
Exactly. And why is the UFO that shape? Why is the UFO that shape? And the triangle UFOs just need 3 of them. 3 of these. See, there's, you want to switch between paramagnetism and diamagnetism in your lens for because your paramagnetism is pushing away, and your paramagnetism is attracting, and your diamagnetism is pushing away. Yeah. So that's how those types of. So you actually have ferromagnetism, and you have paramagnetism, diamagnetism, and antiferromagnetism.
I love some of these comments. So if the crown and root chakras were in higher use, technically the aura would be lens shaped.
It's really, I was just reading a study today at a university. It's amazing what they're doing in the lab now. They found the area, they don't call it the crown chakra, but it's the upper scalp part of the brain that when you induce certain acoustic frequencies upon it, it generates a magnetic field in response. And they're just at the beginning of this, right? Like when you start getting, what happens to me every day when I meditate is this supreme ecstasy radiates between the heart field and the crown, but it's not in the body. It's infinite supreme ecstasy, but it appears to be coming in through the crown. Now, in my film, The Voice, which is on Gaia TV, Roger Nelson at Princeton University presented me with this $600,000 camera they used on a meditator in a lab. It's a very grainy photograph, but they actually, in the pitch dark, could see the shape of the crown chakra, and it's a total vortex of very, very grainy image, but we can see the shape of it. It's a vortex field, and you can imagine using the Fibonacci ratio, that vortex would expand all the way out into the galaxy. So when your crown chakra awakens, and that takes years and years and years of working with breath, frequencies, and silence, and very, very powerful practices. I mean, I have a whole course, a 3-year course on my website teaching people how to meditate with breath, frequency, and the light. And remember, the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, this will be the last thing I say because I have to go feed my kids, is, "O thou from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all realms with sound, light, and vibration." So, "O thou from whom the breath of life comes," so we have breath, "who fills all realms with sound," which is frequency, light, and vibration. That's the original Lord's Prayer as Jesus spoke it. And that got changed into, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." That got changed into that. So Jesus spoke Aramaic. He didn't speak Latin. And he might have known a few words in Latin. He might have known a little bit to get by, but he spoke in Aramaic. And of course, the canonized Bible was found in Greek. Jesus never spoke Greek. So we don't, what we know is in the original Aramaic, it's the breath, the sound, and the light. It's the key to illumination. So until next time, thanks for everybody for being here. The replays to these videos are on my channel, so please share them with people who you think might be interested. Thanks for listening.
They're in the live section, not in the regular section. So you have to click live, and then they're all there.
Okay,
Just know that. You're welcome.